Okay, here we are balancing a full rotor engine, and I just want to touch on some of the basics of what's involved in something like this. It's kind of like balancing any other engine. It's just the shaft is much longer, and because of that, the harmonics happen at different frequencies. So the speed of the shaft has to be adjusted to it, and you have to do a lot of checks prior to beginning to do the corrections on the counterweights. The rotors have all already been balanced previously. We went ahead and prepared the bob weights to the rotors. They required a lot of math involved in getting the bob weights with the proper correction and the proper amount of added weight to match the weight of the rotor, plus all the seals, plus the oil that's held internally. When we started the balancing procedure, the front counterweight was off by about 180 grams, which is 1/3 of a pound. The rear counterweight was off by, I can't remember the exact numbers, but they were like in the 270, 280 gram range of being off, which is like half a pound. So much so that before I actually put the belt and you put the weights on and just spin it with your finger, the shaft would rotate and the counterweight would always be towards the bottom, because there was so much, a mass of half a pound. Can you imagine that hanging here? To give you an idea, we have several four-rotor engines here. This is another one that I've yet to start balancing, but if you can compare, let's see which is the best way to do it. If you can compare this counterweight to this counterweight, and let's get the corners horizontal to the table. Okay, this is horizontal. Look, and this is horizontal. Look at this counterweight. I had to literally whack out all this section, plus blow a hole in there 1 inch in diameter, before I actually got close enough to begin balancing. The reason why the counterweights are so heavy is they give you enough material so that you could balance the shaft to whatever weight rotors you're using, whether you're using low compression 87 rotors or early style GSL SE rotors, which are the heaviest. Obviously you would need more weight. When you start using high compression 89 rotors, and then you go ahead and lighten them on top of that, you reduce the weight of the bob weight so much that you literally have to take more than half a pound of weight off of the counterweights. And depending where the weight is at, obviously it would be located in one spot or another. This required all of the weight to be taken in somewhat of this position. Now, once I got close enough where I was within 8 grams on the front and 18, 19 grams on the rear, I start doing checks with clay. As you can see, the front rotor's got some clay in it right now, because I'm still not done with the final balancing on the bob weight. The reason why we add the clay here is because the bob weight actually requires weight to be taken off in this position. I've already began, after taking through all these big holes, after taking 1/3 of a pound off, I still have 19 grams to work with. That it's still heavy on the top. So I've gone ahead and machined some more weight off over here, and I'm still about 5 grams that need to be removed. So the reason why, if you have to remove over here, you add weight over here by clay to make your test. That verifies that everything is going correctly. I actually had clay on both ends at one point to make sure that the motor was within 0.3 of a gram and everything was perfect before I actually began to remove material. You remove material in the wrong spot in the rear counterweight, you have a good chance of being able to correct it by removing weight off the opposite end and move the imbalance around. You don't have that luxury in the front. If you take too much out of the top, you either throw that counterweight away or you add heavy metal. Heavy metal is tungsten. But can you imagine adding heavy metal to all that? It's literally impossible. When obviously I was balancing the back first before I corrected the front with clay and the amount of correction that I've already added to it. But in process of removing weight, I took out a great majority of this section, machined, and that's basically by eyeball and experience. It was still heavy. Then I blew a 1-inch hole, still heavy, but in doing so, the corrections required were asking for them over here. Obviously, I have no material there. Not only do I not have material there, I don't have much of a radius. And the way the correction works is grams of weight multiplied by the radius. The further out you go, the more weight you take out. Because for whatever depth hole you make, the further out it is, the more material you literally take out, because you're increasing the radius. X amount of weight multiplied by the distance. So because of that, I experimented. I needed to shift the weight over to where there was material. So I experimented with adding pieces of clay opposite to where it needed it. Actually, in this case, I needed to shift it. So rather than going opposite, I went 90 degrees because I wanted it. It was over here. I wanted it to go like this and move it over here. So by adding clay, different spots, figure out exactly opposite where I needed to remove in order to shift the imbalance to where I actually had material. This was a first cut. Shifted it over enough, but not quite enough, kind of like over here. Then I drilled again over here. Combination of removing the weight of these two shifted the imbalance over to this side. Then I went ahead and took, each time you have to remove and reinstall, remove and reinstall the counterweight. At this point, on the back side, I'm down to 1/2 gram. The rest of it, the rest 3/10 of a gram that I will remove because I want to leave this rotating assembly, especially on a rotor engine that is so long, at about 2/10 of a gram. That's really, anything below 1 gram is kind of insignificant, but for anything you go above and beyond that, you're extending the life of the engine. Not only that, but you're also allowing it to rev more freely because you're reducing the internal drag of the parts being swung around. At this point, you can see that the back is within 1/2 gram. The front is at somewhere about 2/10 of a gram, 3/10 of a gram. It claims to be intolerance. We're going to spin it right now. It doesn't claim it. It says intolerance.
Tolerance being what, 1 gram?
Well, the tolerance is what I choose to give it.
Yeah.
I choose to give it 2/10 of a gram.
Oh.
Rather, right now I have it at 3/10 of a gram because
so
I'm working my way, removing minuscule amounts.
Yeah.
We're going to spin it now to verify these results, and then I'm going to remove the clay to bring it to its real state, because right now I'm faking it, and it'll show that the imbalance is on the opposite end, right there where I have it marked, of where that clay is at. So let's go ahead and spin it. Verify our results. If you notice, the motor spun, then backed off, and now it's picking up speed again. That first spin before it backs off, it's going through a diagnostic check to make sure that machine is really capable of taking it up to higher speeds so that it doesn't bounce off the machine or do anything crazy. Okay, again, results are pretty much exactly the same. 1/2 gram on this end, 2/10 of a gram on this end. Now I'm going to remove the clay, which is going to give me the true imbalance of the front end of the engine. The back end shouldn't change at all. Notice how that time when it stopped doing the check, it was much longer than the previous one because the front is way off now. Okay, there you go. The back didn't change at all, 0.48.
Yep.
The front went up to almost 10 grams. Now, I have the history of these spins. You can see here 0.77, 0.35, 0.79, 0.35, 0.74, 0.36. This section right here is where I had both front and rear counterweights corrected with clay. As soon as I removed the clay, the front jumped to 19 grams. Like I said, I had already corrected the back end with the holes that we showed you previously. As soon as I removed the clay, I jumped to almost 20 grams. Then removed it, made this cut here, and all of a sudden I took out literally, you see?
10 grams.
Basically 10 grams. These two runs are pretty much identical. 19.8 at 220. This is the crank angle.
Yeah.
Same exact crank angle. 1/10 of a gram difference. And the reason why you get some minor differences is this machine is extremely sensitive. It's sensitive, very sensitive to temperature. With the air conditioner on, if it changes slightly, it'll change the sensitivity of the machine, but also changes the viscosity of the oil. When you're dealing with 1/10 of a gram on 20, that is absolutely nothing. But the point is that it does repeat. If you don't have repeatability, regardless of what you're doing, something is not right, and you need to go back and check where you made the mistake in the setup. Another part of balancing is knowing and be able to anticipate the results that you're looking for. If you don't know what you should be getting and it doesn't give you those readings, something is wrong in the mechanical setup. You know, human factor. Okay, so we just jumped to what the motor actually really needs out of balance, and I need to, rather than keep digging deeper on the front end here, I've already blown two little holes, went through to the big ones when I was removing 1/3 of a pound off the counterweight. So I am going to spin it again 2 or 3 times, make sure that it's giving me the exact same readings, and then I'm going to do the same process on the back side. The rear half of the engine hasn't changed at all. We're still at 1/2 gram. The previous run was 0.48, but we just removed a heavy amount of weight. Anything can affect 2/10 of a gram when you have all of a sudden you have a difference from 1/2 gram to 10 grams. But the point is that the front side, where the front counterweight, where we removed the fake weight, has now repeated exactly as before. So at this point, I am going to remove the front stack, remove the front counterweight, do the same machining process on the back side where I have plenty of material as I did to the front, and get down to within 1 gram. Then at that point, the rest of it, we're going to do it on the actual balancer with a die grinder and a grinding stone, little ball, and just keep kissing it and keep kissing it, removing tenths of grams off. It takes a long time to do it this way, but eventually you get to the point where it is absolutely perfect. Because what will end up happening is this: as you take off more and more from one end, is going to, because of harmonics and because of the length of the shaft and the normal wobble that anything that spins has, weight is going to shift back and forth by minute amounts, but back and forth. So you want to, that's the purpose of testing it, so that you know that when you got one side corrected with clay, which is a fake correction, and the other side is not changing, then you know that the work has been done correctly. If all of a sudden you add weight over here and this one goes off the scale, something's wrong. All those runs previously, you could see that the actual weight remained exactly the same, you know, right here. Now, as soon as I remove the weight, the rear counterweight went up by 4/10 of a gram. That's to be expected, because we went from less than half a gram to 10 grams. So it went up by a very, very, very slight amount. Okay, so now we'll tear the front side off, get the counterweight off the shaft, take it to the mill, do the same operation. We'll probably take a couple of tries, get down to where I'm within a gram, and then the rest of it we'll do it by hand. Counterweight, oil pump drive gear, distributor drive gear, and the front pulley. This is an extremely lightweight aluminum front pulley that I use for balancing, because it's so light, and as you can see, I've already balanced it. It's not going to affect whatsoever the rest of the procedure. I've already set up the rear counterweight. We marked exactly where the weight removal is required. We need to remove around 9.5 to 10 grams. So based on this graph that I've compiled, and I'm using a 1/2 inch end mill, I'm going to use a 1/2 inch end mill going down 1/4 of an inch. Should remove 6 grams, 6.3. We were at 9.8, so I should have about 3 grams to remove after this operation. I'm actually not even going to go quite 1/4 inch. I'm only going to go 200 thousandths. So I'll probably have about 3.5 to 4 grams to still remove. I'd rather do it in multiple steps than
overshoot.
be arrogant, overshoot, and then end up having an issue where there's absolutely no material to work with.
Yeah.
It, again, very repetitive, very time consuming. It's the only way to do it right. I've already touched it with the end mill, dropped the stop 200 thousandths, and now we're going to drill. This is going to take a while. I'm doing a relatively slow speed for an end mill, but again, I'd rather ride on the side of caution than get too aggressive and create myself a major headache. Okay, I've touched. I've got as far as I can go. I'm just going to vacuum this off, pull it off, shaft, the front stack, and we've gone ahead and put the pickup, which goes to the reluctor, which gives the information of both for crank position to the computer. Got it all in place, but this is the point. It is absolutely imperative to get this magnet and pickup perfect, because the slightest off to one side or another will affect the weight of the correction. However minute it is, it's going to affect it. And since you could put that pickup here on the shaft, or here, or here, or here, or here, it'll affect it and it'll start throwing it around. So once I have it lined up, we can see that I put that by hand. So now I am going to tap it into place and get it to be exactly at 0. That will guarantee me that regardless of clocking, it is not going to affect the imbalance of the counterweight. A lot of people, in fact, I've been told that guys that have come over to watch their work done, it's like, hey, why don't you just, you know, cut a groove inside the bolt so that the magnetic pickup will always fall in the same position. Never will. However tight you get it, it will always be slightly off. Alright, we're close enough. Now I'm going to get it dead nut center. Okay, I know my machine because I've been working on it with it for over 15 years. So I know when the indicator is not perfect. We keep playing with it until we get it dead nut center. Obviously, this piece here is 15 years old already, so it has a few little dings and stuff like that, so you have to kind of average it out. But I can see that it's still off to one side more than the other. And we're going to pick the high spot, okay, from here, which is a low spot, to here, which is the other low spot. So the high spot's going to be somewhere around there. And we're going to tap it in the other direction. About 5 minutes on getting the reluctor pickup dead on. You can see that it's absolutely on center. That minuscule little moving around, it's just the marks on the magnet, but it's dead on. Alright, at this point we're going to spin it again and see what our results are. Actually, I got to zero it out. Not too far off. 357 from 360. Zero it. Spin. Alright, we're literally at 6 grams. Before we were at 9.8, I think, or 9.7. So the math was right. I was anticipating 3.5 to 4 grams to be removed. Pretty much 4 grams are removed. So it goes back to what I'm saying. You gotta be anticipating your results and make sure that they are what you're expecting. If not, something has gone wrong. And you can't keep chasing that, what went wrong, without going back to your setup, because then you're just chasing an imaginary out of balance problem that you'll never correct. So now we're going to remove the front stack again and take a little more out. 15 is 50,000. Another 50,000. you know what? I'm not gonna go that deep. I'd rather, like I said, err on the side of caution. So that's 100,000. I'm gonna go to 75. So that's 5, 15, 20, 25,000 down. That I had done on the front side, I did it on the back side. I was trying to be extremely cautious and not take out too much, but human factor, slight calculation. Actually, the calculation was perfect, but I figured, well, let me save myself another possible step. I took off a little bit too much, and we're going to see right now that it has totally shifted the point of imbalance of that front counterweight. Thank God that I didn't go too much and shifted it to a place where there would be no material to correct with, and then all this work out the door to start all over. We'll spin it. Again, prior to every spin, you want to make sure that that reluctor magnet is always dead center, which I did just before this spin. There is the point of correction now. It went from here, where I had that Sharpie mark, shifted all the way to here. So now I've got 1.5 grams to take out, because that correction that I made in the back took out, well, we were at 5 something, so it took out 4 grams, maybe 3.5 grams, but it wasn't enough to really mess things up and put it where it would be impossible to correct. I'm going to go ahead and prepare to take some weight out around here, and I want to get down to less than 1 gram, like 0.7, 0.8, and then I'll finish it off by hand. Let's do this. Let's do this again. Okay, I just did my correction, and again, being very prudent, not to go too far. I'm preaching to be prudent, and I screwed up myself. So let's spin it right now and see where we're at. All right, beautiful. We're exactly where we want it to be. I want it to be below 1 gram. Like I said earlier, about 8/10. We're at 3/4 gram, and obviously that also shifted the weight over. I made my correction here, and now this is the heavy spot right there. So the rest of it, I'm going to do it by hand. It's going to take countless spins. I'm going to be taking about a 1/10.5 to 2/10 of a gram off every time I spin it, every time I grind a little bit of it, until I get it exactly where I want it. In the course of the spins and the minor mistake on my end. Just to make sure we're going in the right direction, I'm looking at the history of all the spins. As you can see, the amounts were about a gram and a gram and a quarter to a gram and a third. Same on this side, three quarters of a gram. Right, that spin for whatever reason doesn't add up. Maybe I tried some clay or something, I'm not sure. But right about this point here is where everything shifted. It shifted both on the front side and on the back side. Kept making minor corrections, and now I'm exactly where I want to be. So the rest of it I'm going to do by hand. Alright, down to a half a gram. I'm not going to take any more chances with the drill, so the rest of it will be, I took another little spot right there with the drill. The rest of it I'm going to do it by hand with a die grinder.
What do you need, like 1/10 of a gram more off?
Yeah, about a 1/10 and a quarter. On these 4 rotor engines, see, I know that that's less than what I'm looking for. But on these 4 rotor engines, they're real tricky because the front and rear rotor are at 180 degrees. Front and second. The third and fourth are also at 100 degrees, but 2 and 3 are at 90 degrees. So, we're dealing with invisible forces here, and I really don't know why, but from experience, I have noticed that, and it's particular to the 4 rotor engine, because it's the only one like that. The 3 rotor doesn't behave that way, and neither does a 2 rotor. A very small amount of correction ends up reflecting a big chunk of correction. In other words, a small amount of removal of material ends up producing a very large amount of correction on the shaft. So, you know, normally that would only take about maybe, I don't know, less than a 1/10. It would probably show up as being more here. So again, I'd rather be careful than have a problem. 55, 57. So 2/10 of a gram. That spin right there, I had the filings that we ground off, got caught between the reluctant magnet and stuff like that, so we had to clean everything out. So again, I was thinking it was going to take out 1/10, and it actually took out 2/10. So maybe the next spin gets it, maybe it'll take 2.
So you got it.
Okay. Well, you got it, but now the front is so perfectly balanced that the back has gone off slightly. Let's look at the history. Oh well, it only records so many. I'll have to close it and start again. Before it was 0.32 at crank angle 0.2. Now it's getting to such a minute amount that now the machine is going to have a difficult time to pick up where the actual imbalance is. But you know, we're at 3/10 of a gram on an assembly that weighs around 70, 80 pounds. You know, each rotor at 9 pounds, that's 36. Well, I guess it's less. We'll weigh the shaft afterwards, but it's got to be at least 25, 30 pounds. So, you know, easily 70 pounds. Got now 3 spins with pretty much the same exact results. Same results on the back end. This one here, and this one here, I had to straighten out the reluctor, and this one here, I had ground some, so I had to blow all the particles away. So now we're gonna correct the back and leave it at that. I mean, you know, 1 gram is negligible. I'm going for the absolute possible best, and almost down to so minute, pretty much the same angles. So at this point, I'm very happy with it. I'm going to correct the backside, just touch it like I did the first time around, and we're going to leave it at that. From this final set of spins, the imbalances are identical. The amount is so minute that it's kind of difficult for the machine to actually locate it. We're talking about less than 0.2 of a gram. But you can see 20, 20, 25, 24, 22, 22, 23, 22, 19, 19. We'll spin it one more time, show you guys. $20.20. Dead on the money. You know it was throwing the machine off?
What?
You will not believe it.
What?
You guys will not believe it. The crank that I used to raise the table to use the drill is right here. And vibrate. I checked everything. I was not getting repeatability, which is what I continue to stress. So I've checked everything. I even added a grounding strap, which sometimes the machine will generate static electricity. That didn't help. So I'm looking around, and I just happened to stare down and pulled it off. And there you have your results.
You don't get no better than that. The machine can't even tell you where to drill beyond 0.2, huh?
No. It's too small. I mean, we're going from 0.23 to 0.22, 0.19, 0.19, 0.20, 0.20.
But it's in different locations, different degrees, like
Correct.
30 degrees, 40
Correct.
degrees
I
off.
mean, it's such a minuscule amount when you consider you're talking 0.2 of a gram on a rotating assembly that weighs about 70 pounds. 0.2 of a gram on 70 pounds. I can sit down and do the math, but I would guarantee you that's less than 1/1,000,000 of 1%.
Yeah, I bet.
That concludes the painstaking process of balancing an engine properly, particularly a full rotor, which requires a lot of work, a lot of time, and you know, like I said, as the shaft gets longer, the harmonics happen at an earlier RPM. So, you know, there's just a lot involved with it. But if you spend enough time, you can get it perfect, as you can see. And again, it goes back to repeatability. If you don't repeat, something's not right. Something as simple as that, which I put on the mill to raise the table to drill some holes. I completely forgot about it.
Wow. Crazy. Good job.